All right, good morning, everybody. It's 8:30. We'll call this morning's meeting to order. Our first item is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
A motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion?
I just want to discuss something really quick. I know that there have been discussion in the communities in regards to motor vehicle wait times, and it seems to happen on the first of the month where people have said we've been short-staffed and excess wait times, even though now we have a new location. I want to make sure the public knows in this consent agenda, there is an approval to request an additional motor vehicle position. It was budgeted in 2021, but I want the public to know that we are making these changes after hearing their concerns for wait times.
So you're not suggesting another agenda item to talk about?
No, I just want to highlight the fact that that's in that consent agenda.
Very good, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Citizens to be heard. Do we have anybody online, Steve?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I see nobody else in the audience, so we'll move to the approval of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross and second by Commissioner Cayley. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Okay, we'll move into item number 2, the update on COVID. Kathy, good morning. And looks like you've brought Jamie with you again. I saw that it looks like some Clay County numbers are way down. Please don't tell me that I read that wrong. Yeah. Well, it was on that. Yeah, it's showing here too, yeah. Okay.
So we can look at the numbers and the graph now is updated to at least up to January 4th, so we can kind of see it, not surging up at this point in time. So the numbers of cases you can see are 6,343, so we're not seeing such a high number increasing. There's some increase, but not much. And then our active cases that we're dealing with currently is 174. And again, these numbers are, there's a little delay in the updates, but the numbers are certainly down, even based on what our case investigators and contact tracers are saying.
Oh, so should I repeat everything I said?
Yes, yeah, why don't you?
I apologize, I didn't
Well,
even
let's
know.
start with this. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. And that ends my report. Thank you very much.
All right.
Sorry. Okay, so the numbers, as it shows on the graph from the handout, it shows that the numbers are leveling off. Our total cases are 6,343. So we have 174 active cases, and that number is even down since the 6th. So I think the numbers are under 100 now for active cases. And our case investigators and contact tracers are still working through the cases, but the numbers are down, so there's less time putting into those cases. So that's all good. All of the measures that we talk about, the masking and social distancing, clearly are helping keep our numbers low, because we don't see that across the country. There's some states that are really seeing surges. We also know that our hospitals, Ascension, Sanford, are managing quite well, and they're not seeing unmanageable numbers for patients admitted to ICU or the hospital. So that's really good too. We look at the hospital situation and make sure that they're not overwhelmed, and they are not as of the last report. 78 deaths, so we've had 78 since December 23rd, so no additional deaths at this reporting period. You know, we don't like to see any deaths, but we have maintained no deaths since that 23rd, December 23rd, where we were jumped up to 78. The cumulative cases for Minnesota is a bit over 437,000, and they have 5,711 deaths, 5,711. And then, of course, our hospitalizations are all across the state of Minnesota. Their cumulative positive rate is fairly close to the same, so 7.6%. So those numbers are, again, we're happy to see that we are not surging up, so that's really good. And then if we go to the third page, because Jamie's going to be talking about the vaccine administration in just a minute, but the third page shows the ages again of our active cases, our cumulative, cases. You see the difference, and now active cases are really the 40 to 44 are our top, and then the 20 to 24, but they're really kind of all around that age category. When we talk about our active cases, initially when COVID started, it was really hitting long-term care facilities, but that's less of the impact at this time and more of the impact on that middle age category from our 20s to 49, so in that range. So it's a bit all over the age range in that spectrum.
Kathy, is this graph on the age of active cases, is that comparative to the 174 number on the front page?
Yes,
So they kind of correlate together?
correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
And then the Cass County numbers, they're also doing pretty well with their cases as well. So they have 388 active cases, a total of 20,418. That's in Cass County, and then the 177 deaths. So their cases are also more manageable than they were previously. So they're seeing that decline in cases also. So we're really doing pretty well in the number of, mainly the number of positive cases we're following, and also the hospitalizations. It's really a big deal to manage that our hospitals are managing those cases, and we're not seeing the big influx. So things are going pretty well at this point in time. So we're happy to see those numbers. And then I'll have Jamie talk about the vaccine distribution.
Before you do that.
Oh, sure.
Commissioner Mojo has a question for you.
Thank you. For the public's perspective, we get these packets every single week on the numbers, and so I appreciate that, because we've asked you to bring that together so that it was easier to track and understand. And from the public's perspective, I think it's important that they know that this pause in deaths that we've had is something that we haven't seen since September. And the actions that we have, as a community, have taken to keep each other safe is really working in terms of preventing deaths and keeping the hospitals at a manageable level. And I think that's an important milestone, a sad, grim milestone, but one that's important that the public know that even though there are some serious cases out there, we did see a little bit of a pause in deaths.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Mojo. That is absolutely good to recognize.
Amy, good morning.
I'll talk a little bit about vaccine distribution and administration in Minnesota. As Kathy pointed out, we have been busy vaccinating, and I will say not busy enough. So we, of course, would like, knowing that there's a national shortage of vaccine, we would like to see more flowing. We have two teams that are working. One is the planning team and one is the administration team. And the planning team has been very busy training staff, training student nurses in the community, and they're ready to go. And so we are prepared to vaccinate as much as we can get vaccine. In Minnesota, basically, there have been 147,645 doses. In Clay County, there has been 918 doses administered, and that is updated weekly, so that'll update again on Thursday. Clay County Public Health last week vaccinated 500 people. And so we are bumping that number up, and we do have plans for another clinic this week to use the vaccine that we will have on, the vaccine that came in this week or will come in this week. And that's just short of 200 doses that we will be using this week. Just basically from a perspective for thinking about Clay County, vaccine is coming to us in 3 different ways in the communities. One is through hospitals, and we don't have a hospital in Clay County, so that vaccine is not coming into our community. The other is through the pharmacy program, and we have a very large number of residents living in long-term care in Clay County and assisted living facilities, and they are in the process of being vaccinated by the pharmacy programs. Now, that's a federal route that the vaccine is coming, so it's coming directly to the pharmacies at the federal level. So it's not included in the doses that are listed on the Minnesota Department of Health website when they're talking about how much is coming into them. That's a separate piece, so that's huge, and that's good news. The news that I have to share today is that 3 of our 4 long-term care facilities and nursing homes have been vaccinated. The 4th we just haven't heard back from yet. Our assisted living facilities, we have one that's planning, a large one that's planning to receive vaccine. And again, we try to communicate with them on a regular basis to get those updates, but it's starting to roll for them as well. The phases that we've been focused on in Minnesota is, I'm sorry.
Jamie, so you said the first one was hospitals and the second one was pharmacies. What's the third one?
Public health, sorry. And so those are the 3 tracks that vaccine is coming through. We've talked about vaccine is charged with vaccinating at this point EMS providers that are not affiliated with a healthcare system, and also with the vaccine testers and any healthcare providers that are not affiliated with the healthcare system, like a standalone clinic, and then also the vaccinators, COVID testers and vaccinators. So that's what we've been focusing on in phase 1A, and that's the first priority, so we continue to address that. Last week, we did have some vaccine, and we didn't have enough of those groups signed up, so we moved into priority 2 and 3 as we could to get the vaccine used up by the end of the week. So this priority is back to phase 1A, priority 1, so we are, it's our first responders and our testers and vaccinators that are scheduled to vaccinate this week. The way the process works is that we actually send them out an invitation. So if you're an employee, that invitation comes to you through your employer. So that's who we're reaching out to, saying, how many employees do you have that are healthcare providers or first responders that are in that face-to-face? So we're focusing on healthcare providers and face-to-face contact right now. And so we send them the link. They register through our electronic system, PrepMod, that we're using for the state of Minnesota to vaccinate.
Just a question. Public safety, law enforcement, and firefighters, are they part of this group, and have they been reached out to?
They, our first priority was EMS, so, you know, that's what we focused on last week, and we did push that out. That's what I said, we didn't get enough registered, so we moved on. Law enforcement was moved into that priority area at the end of last week, so that's a lot of who we have scheduled for this week.
Yeah, statistically, it's the largest killer of police officers and deputies last year on in line of duty deaths. And it really is something that needs to be addressed.
And it is. It's a priority. It needed to come through the state. We realized that law enforcement is often first at the scene and responding, and so that just needed to, that direction needed to come through the state, and it has. So we're moving forward on that. So basically, the planning that's going on between state and local public health is at, you know, the corrections level, the homeless shelter level, the universities, the schools. All of that planning is happening on a weekly basis to figure out when will we do them. So as we're talking about, we have to get the okay from the state to move to the next group, we are already prepared because we're planning, we're getting numbers, and and deciding what would be the best venue for us to administer that vaccine.
Jamie, is the 918 number, those are public health vaccinations?
That is actually, it would be anyone that the vaccine came from the state and was administered in Clay County. So it could be our nursing homes, it
Oh,
could be our
okay.
assisted livings,
Okay, pharmacies?
yes,
Okay.
and us. So we know that number's low because it
Yeah.
updates weekly, and so we're waiting for it to increase. But we know we contributed 500 of those.
So there, we have several citizens in Clay County that work for Essentia or Sanford, and they're receiving that vaccine, but they would not be included in these numbers, would they?
Right.
So in terms of the hospitals, even though we don't have hospitals in Clay County, we have, a significant number of our citizens work there, and they are getting the vaccination through that process.
Yes, as well
I
as,
know several of them already have, and
Yes.
we're thankful for that, but,
as well as our clinics that are affiliated with them, but
Yes.
yet located in Clay County. So,
Okay.
so that's a very large number of healthcare.
yeah, and so they're not included in that 980.
They're not included in that number.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we did put a request in because we're getting kind of small amounts and we have the capacity to vaccinate many more. So we put a request in for larger amounts of vaccine. And so we'll see, we get shipments every week. It comes through the federal government and then the Minnesota Department of Health kind of vets that out. So we are hoping to get a lot more shipment because we have the ability to provide more.
And I do want to say that personally, I get information on my chart, and they kind of keep me up to date in terms of where I stand in their process.
Sanford, my chart.
Yes, yeah, and this happens to be Sanford. I wasn't going to promote one.
I think my chart, people don't know what.
Oh, yeah. So it's, so I do get updates on, and I think they take several factors into consideration too on where you're going to be in line for their shots too.
Sure.
And that's an important point, because the calls that are coming through our office, we're talking about if you're an employee, you'll be notified by your employer, but if you're a citizen, you'll be notified by your healthcare provider, and so I think that's what you're talking about.
Right.
We're pushing that out to the public too,
Yeah.
saying, we will be in touch with you when you're ready for your group.
Well, and I think they're probably overwhelmed with calls too about
Yes.
when can I get it, so I think they're kind of stay ahead of it by doing those messages, which I think is good, so.
Right.
Can I ask a quick question too? So for citizens that don't have a regular healthcare provider, how will they find out when they can be vaccinated?
That's a really good question, and what we've seen with flu clinics in the past is that the healthcare providers will do blitzes and say you don't have to be a client of ours, that you can hold a clinic. Otherwise, if they don't have a clinic, public health would be responsible for them.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioner Kaylee, we will eventually be opening up what we call mass dispensing. So it'll be open to the general population. So when we get to that place where MDH allows us to open up a mass dispensing, then citizens will be able to go there as well.
Excellent, thank you.
So, places like Churches United and, how, are they considered in a phase or?
They are, and they're a high-risk priority because of
Right.
the congregate living setting, and so
Right.
they are in Phase 1, Priority 3, and we had a conversation with them in the State Health Department yesterday and doing some planning for that group as well.
Because, that could also be a real source of spreading if it's.
And Commissioner Chair, we also need to work with, when we talk about homeless individuals or people experiencing homelessness in facilities like that, we really want to work across the metro area. So we have someone on our staff that will be working with someone in Fargo-Cass Public Health. So because we know these individuals sometimes cross over. And so to find them to get even a second dose is going to be a challenge. So we're going to work kind of across the metro for all the homeless population.
Okay. Anything else, Jamie, on the vaccines?
Yeah, one question. If you take the first one and don't take the second one, is it still effective or not as effective?
Less effective, just like our childhood immunizations, they have a series because that's how you get to boost your immunity to the appropriate level. So you're not going to be adequately covered with that first vaccine.
Okay.
It's kind of like taking part of your antibiotics and not finishing it.
Yeah, you're only partially, you only have a much lower percentage of immunity. So to get to that 95%, you need the second dose.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Steve, any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good report. It's a good report. Okay, we'll move into our next item, and that's the request approval from the Clay County Business Relief Program guidelines and application process. County Administrator Stephen Larson, good morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, exciting day today. Back, if you recall, back in December 16th of last year, Governor Walz signed into legislation establishing a $216 million small business relief package. It came in three categories. One, a direct payment that would come from the Department of Revenue that for businesses that saw a 30% drop in year-to-year taxable sales brought about by the Executive Order 20-99. There's also a portion that went to theaters and event centers. And the reason that we're here this morning is they also established $114.8 million to be distributed to counties based on their population to address the needs of local businesses. Clay County submitted and has received their allocation of $1,274,738.02. That includes a state set administrative fee. I just want to note that the Association of Minnesota Counties has been an important partner in this and in working with the legislature and also working with us as we've gone to develop our programs. The Corona Relief Virus Committee had been established to deal with the Federal CARES Fund, and they were brought back together to look at this program. Unlike in the CARES program, the cities and townships were not eligible for direct allocation, and so all of the funding came to Clay County. Having said that, in our first meeting, it was very important to the committee that we have our other partners at the table as we talked about this. On December 19th, we met with a series of multiple representatives from city and county officials and economic development agencies. And the goal of this committee has been to provide, feedback on how we can provide the best program possible and be the most impactful. So unlike the funding, these legislative dollars came with some clearer guidelines. The legislator wanted to give priority, of course, to those businesses that were affected most by Executive Order 20-99. And the important part was that there was a focus and there was intent on the program.
Steve, when you talk about Executive Order 29, will you explain the time frame of that executive order?
Sure. So on November, I believe it was 18th, Governor Walz signed Executive Order 20-99, which essentially closed gyms. It limited restaurants and bars to providing service, either takeout or outside seating. And it addressed, I guess, those were the main issues. And also closed theaters and event centers. And so those were the main focuses of that executive order.
And that went through January 10th.
That went through, January, yes. Through yesterday, they were able to open. So the legislator, again, had a clear intent with where they wanted this money spent. They also encouraged counties to look at businesses that may have fallen through the cracks, their previous Department of Revenue and deed programs. And so they're also extremely deliberate in what they did not want this funding to go towards, and those were schools, hotels, and certainly while acknowledging a need, landlord assistance, social service programs such as food shelves, multiple municipal liquor stores, nonprofits unless operating similarly to bars or restaurants such as veterans organizations, and the motor coach bus industry. With that direction, our committee met on multiple occasions with our community partners to vet different scenarios. We also had additional meetings with just our coronavirus relief committee to develop a program of where we are today. Each of you should have received a handout on your desk with the business application. That will, if this board approves this business relief program, this will go live. This version of this will go live on our website today at noon. It's going to run through January 24th at 11:59. On the website, the Clay County website, it provides you a link, which will also provide all of the necessary application process, but also the guidelines and eligibility requirements. And so, again, the focus of this is going to be, of this business relief plan will be funding for businesses that were directly affected by Executive Order 99. The amount that businesses would receive would be based on the number of applications that we receive and their ability to show need. And so, through this application process, businesses will be asked a series of questions. Some of these questions are qualifying questions. If they answer incorrectly, they'll be notified through red lettering that they may not be eligible. In this process, we are allowing the businesses to go through the entire process, the entire application process. We also then, once that's done, we do have a screening team, which is made of both county and city officials that will go through the applications to see who qualifies. As we have in the past business relief plans will have an opportunity to contact the county with any additional questions, whether that's through an email account or through a phone number, and a staff member will respond. And so with that, I would yield for any questions.
I might want to point out when Mr. Larson talked about the ability to show need, I think through this questionnaire, the goal is to apply some points based on the questions that are answered, and that'll help and all that's going to be based on that factor. You know, how much revenue they lost, did they keep their employees on, or did they not keep their employees on? There's several things that'll come into play and for example, some of these businesses may have gotten a direct payment under Executive Order 99 too from the state, and some of our new businesses did not. You think of TAC, and you think of the Silver Spike, and some of these others that didn't have those comparative numbers. So we're going to be weighing that as well in terms of how they did not get relief, but probably should have from our standpoint. So.
And that's a very good point, Mr. Chair. I think the legislature also is clear is that they weren't looking to spread this money as far as they could, but identify those areas that with the greatest needs, and so, and even going down to further into that executive order businesses who may be affected more greatly.
Yeah.
Do these businesses have to go to the websites to get information, or are we sending something out to them?
I think, the goal would be this morning, if we approve this application process, there will be a major media blitz to get the word out to businesses as far as to what they need to do. And we will, I think the cities will be putting information out. The business associations will be putting information out. And hopefully all of us, through whatever means we have through social media, can help get those links out as well. So I don't think there's going to be any, business left unturned when it comes to being able to know about this. But they do, Commissioner Gross, they do have to go to the county website to do the application process.
Okay.
So.
And Mr. Chair, again, I would just like to thank our city representatives and economic development groups that came in and provided us the feedback over the last few weeks in looking at developing this program.
Commissioner Gross, one of the things, based on your question that we could probably do too, is we could probably get a list of all of our Clay County food and beverage license holders. And maybe we could compare that, and I'm looking back to Mark, we can maybe compare that to the list of applicants and to see if somebody who is a food and beverage,
I would think almost every food and beverage
well, they're,
place,
most of them will qualify. I think we have certain areas of chains or something I think might not fall under that category, but that's a good point, and maybe we can, before we finalize the numbers, we can, match those lists up, and if we have to contact somebody that didn't apply, we could do that based on that list. Because we do want all those people who saw, a reduction to try to, we want to be able to help them, so.
if a business, excuse me, if a business that's indicated they've closed, would they still qualify?
No, if they're permanently closed,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
in the meantime, they,
under what we have going on right now, they would not qualify.
okay?
I mean, our goal is focused to try to keep businesses open.
Well, I mean, some closed because of it.
Yeah, but,
Mr. Chair, what is the deadline to turn in the application?
it would be Sunday night, January 24th at 11:59 PM. And I, for all of you, I think, starting probably tomorrow, it's very likely we could see applications start to come in. And we aren't going to wait till the 24th to start processing those. We'll do that immediately, so that'll help us gain information and get us ready for making a determination on how we will sort out and who will get how much. And again, I think, and I give credit to Mr. Sloan, he came up with this idea of a point system, and I think that might be a real good way to do it, so. Unlike the first relief that we did as a county, every business that qualified got the same dollar amount. We are not looking at that this time. We're looking at there can be differences based on, again, what Mr. Larson said was need, and they're, some had different impacts than others, so we want to address it that way. Commissioner Mojo.
Just want to highlight the fact that the makeup of the group that will be reviewing that is really a team lift with all the representatives from the county and cities to help us get through that pile. It definitely has been a team lift from a lot of different parties, and it will have to be to carry this over the finish. I agree, it's really hard to see the struggle that's happened with some of these affected businesses. The hope is that we could get the money to those that needed it the most as quick as feasibly possible. And so I think Commissioner Gross asked about reaching out to different businesses. Because we had all those cities involved in those discussions, they really will help to make sure they reach out to those in their jurisdictions, the businesses that they saw were affected, and help us to make sure that if there's someone that for some reason missed this, we're reaching out to them. The trick is that some of these businesses are receiving direct payments from the state, and that's a tricky spot to find out who got those and who didn't, but we'll work through that.
I might want to point out, just from a technical standpoint here, that was Commissioner Mojo that was just speaking, and on the screen it had it as Commissioner Kaylee. So just so we can,
All right.
just for the public, but.
I have one more question. Last week at our meeting, we had a big discussion on fees being distributed back and stuff like that. And I don't know if now's the time or whether we do my reporting here about the meeting we had, but probably we should discuss that now as far as the fees, what that meeting came up with.
I'd like to see us, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gross, if we could address this issue first and either adopt or move on from that, and then maybe we can look at that. I know Kathy's is here, but I would suggest we work on this first.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would make a motion to request the approval of this business relief program guidelines and application process going live
Today at noon.
today at noon.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? I think it's great. That's good. So I thank you for everybody who worked on this. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Commissioner Gross, going back to your question, and I've learned that the food board or whatever or the license. Health board.
Community Health Board.
They elected to not change anything. But I've talked with our administrator, and I still want to have discussions about that through our CARES committee, about still, us being able to still do something in terms of proportionate relief. So it's kind of up in the air, and we'll talk about it, and we hopefully we'll bring a proposal back to this board for consideration. So.
What was the discussion from your perspective?
Well, pretty much that each county's gonna do their own thing, but we also looked at the fees, and some of these fees are probably $250. So if you were closed for 2 months and take a percentage of that, so you get $40 back or something like that, and that isn't much of a thing. So we thought in some situations, so looking at the fees is not really that big of a thing, that you're gonna get that much of relief back for a restaurant or something like that, so.
Well, I guess when I look at the numbers and you see, the total dollars that were paid in a year, and you take out a proportion of them, it's still dollars that I,
Well, I think it should be taken into consideration, but we did not want that to be the main thing.
no.
That,
And and
Fees.
Commissioner Gross, there are some municipalities within the county that have already taken action or looking at taking action to do reimbursements for liquor licenses or whatever, and so some of those are being done by the municipalities themselves, but we also have some, for example, liquor license holders in rural Clay County, that $2,000 is way different than
Yes.
than $250. And, so that's also part of what we want to look at,
Yeah.
to make sure that there's, and again, what we're asking for in this process, and as Steve reported, is the $1.274 million. We're focusing on that going back under this plan that's here. There was also those additional dollars of $31,000 that were administrative dollars that, we could look at maybe using those dollars as a partial relief to some of this. But again, that's something that we have to vet out through our CARES committee, and hopefully there will be a proposal.
yeah, because the fees only amounted to $74.90, and that wouldn't be a very big amount to distribute to all the business places.
Right, yeah. We got to be careful that we don't create a bigger cost to distribute it than what it's worth too, so, from the auditor standpoint.
Might follow up on that. Part of the reason we brought this forward is that, I guess from my perspective, I felt it was fair to show businesses that in a time when they were under an executive order, required to not operate their business in the manner that they opened it, it was a show of a small token of our gratitude to what that is, but also to help ease the burden of just another red tape thing that they needed to check off. And from my perspective, I am very strongly in support of a 6 to 1 year refund of what that is, 6 months to 1 year. I understand that if we start calculating percentages, it starts adding time with the auditor's office, and it's gonna cost them money to figure out those fractions. So I think that has to be part of the discussion. I would almost support making sure that because that 1.72,
1.2 cent.
1.2 that we got from the Minnesota legislature, we don't dip into that, because I want to make sure as much of that, the money goes to the businesses. I would not be surprised if Minnesota sees businesses, when those property tax statements are due, say, I'm not going to pay this full amount because I was not allowed to operate my business during the full amount that I'm going to pay the taxes. I don't think that, I would definitely think that's going to happen. And so I think just a small gesture from this board to address what that is important. I agree it needs to happen in committee, and a recommendation will be forthcoming. It's my hope that that happens very quickly. But these businesses really sacrificed a lot. And that's an understatement.
We'll be meeting on Thursday afternoon, and we'll ask that be an agenda item for that meeting. We can be moving at two things at one time here, so. Okay, did we vote, Colleen, on that motion?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Steve, and again, thank you to your staff for putting all this together. And Mark, if you would also send each of our commissioners through their own email process a link that they can use to, in whatever way they need to through social media to share, that would be good. All right. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into our next item. Sheriff Empting, request approval for a 2021 Tahoe.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me here this morning. I'll do a little history for our two new commissioners. When we were going through our 2021 budget process, we had information in regards to a deputy that was potentially going to be, to lean forward for the mic? Okay. We had information of a deputy that was going to potentially be getting deployed for an extended period of time. So when we went through the budget process and we went through the PIC committee, we discussed being able to backfill that position at that time. If he were to get deployed, and we did recently learn that he was definitely going to get deployed, he's going to get deployed March 7th. And it's going to be for an unknown period of time, but not to exceed 400 days. Had he not got deployed, we would not be here for this request today. But since he is getting deployed, we are here for this request today. We were sure to bring that up during our budget process in a new request. We initially requested $65,000, but Chief Deputy Lansom had located $16,000 in an internal service fund that was no longer being used, so our request was reduced down from 65 to 50. And then we used the other 16,000 from that internal service fund to be able to fund this vehicle. We'll also be looking to backfill that position while he's gone. That is not a request today. The reason we're here for the Tahoe request today is because it takes a considerable amount of time for these vehicles to come in. Matter of fact, we did order one already, but that's not even gonna get to be built until February. So we probably wouldn't even start to see that until sometime June, July. So that's why we're trying to get ahead of the game right now rather than being behind the eight ball.
What's gonna happen to the vehicle that the person has?
So currently, the person that has that vehicle, he is our canine deputy. It's got a lot of specialized equipment in there, such as a canine kennel, a fan, a hot and pop system. It limits the amount of people you can transport in the back. That car is going to be used temporarily until we get the new Tahoe in, and then it'll be used as a spare in the event somebody's car goes into the shop for maintenance. We will be able to extend the life of that car another year. Since we just did outfit that car with all the canine equipment last year, it is spendy to do. So we'll be able to extend the life of that car for another year, and then we won't replace that until 2023.
Aside from the cars, our K-9 program not be gonna be going on, or?
We will still have one active canine. Our canine will be getting cared for by another deputy. And then Sergeant Nelson, who's a current canine handler as well, he will be taking the dog, and he will be continuing the training with the dog and things like that. So in the short term, for the 9 months to a year, he may be gone. The dog is going to be continuing training, but won't be able to work the street.
Commissioner Ebinger.
And Mark, just from an accounting standpoint, will this simply be a replacement vehicle for the one that you're going to continue in service, or are you going to have an internal service fund added to your budget to actually make this another vehicle in your fleet?
This will be an additional vehicle. We did add that into the internal service for this year, an extra 50,000 into internal service into the budget for this year. So it would be an additional vehicle.
I guess we have two issues going on here. We have a new vehicle for somebody who is going to be replacing the position that's because he's going to be out, right? So, so we basically are going to have a new deputy coming on. And that's becomes permanent. So, you know, so have we talked through that? I don't know if maybe this was brought to a previous PIC committee, but.
It was brought to PIC, and it was talked about in our budget, in our budget discussions in 2021. And at that time, we felt this was going to be rather budget neutral even for 2022 due to some long-term retirements. There's been a few deputies indicating that they're going to be retiring towards the end of this year, the beginning part of next year. Therefore, we feel that it's going to be rather budget neutral.
Okay, so this new position, you're anticipating it being evened out through attrition?
Well, we would want to retain that position as well in 2022. But we feel it would be a budget neutral type thing in 22 because of the
Longevity?
people that are retiring, and then you're hiring at a lower rate.
Okay. Maybe those of you who are, or Frank, I think you're the only one picked before. I don't know if you want to.
Well, I guess what he's explaining makes sense. I mean, that's what we're talking about, so, but, eventually we're gonna end up with an extra person. Yeah.
That's right.
Correct. Yep. And we are, and that extra person would end up being on patrol. When I started here in 2002 full-time, we had 7 people working night patrol. We currently have 7 people working night patrol. If we have one person leave, that's gonna be tough on our schedule. We'll be down to 6. We probably wouldn't be able to do 24-hour service and things like that if we end up going down. So it would be nice to be able to have that extra person to be able to fill the schedule with another body, because we are light in our schedule. When you have somebody leave and then you have vacations, you have sick time, you have comp time, you have trainings, you have things like that, our schedule gets to be pretty tight. And if you recall, in our 2021 budget discussions, I provided information and graphs to the commissioners for how many times our patrol lieutenant has to fill shifts because we're short, or I'm filling shifts because we're short, or the amount of overtime we've paid out because we're short. So it's, we do get tight in that patrol schedule. We've gone for 19 years at the same level of staffing, but our calls for service have gone up.
Commissioner Mojo.
Sorry, follow up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Frank, were you?
No, go ahead.
So I'm just a little confused. On the memo, it says that in the 2021 budget, we discussed the new request for the vehicle and the equipment for the hire. Did we approve the hire in the 2021 budget talks?
To my understanding, and I spoke a little bit with Steve Larson about this, I was to the understanding that yes, it was. Maybe I understood that improperly or wrong, but I was to the understanding that yes, this was approved.
I guess I don't remember approving that as a new request in the.
I think the position, because while our officer is deployed, isn't going to be taking on a salary. for 2021, if allowed to hire this new person, essentially they would be moving into that role. And so, yeah, you're correct from the standpoint is that you wouldn't see the additional salary until 2022 as part of that discussion.
Well, it's good to know that, you know, by you adding this, you know, and I'm not concerned about 2021 because you know, while the one is gone, you're not paying that person.
Right.
So the new one you will be paying. And then, like you said, through 2022 then, based on potential retirements, I can see where there can be a different pay level based on longevity the savings could help minimize that new amount for 2022. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
And just as a follow-up, I think it's important that you know that I am appreciative of the fact that we have employees that are serving in our military. I think that's commendable. I appreciate that. I am honored that we have staff that do that. So, well, I understand that, and I get that this probably needs to be approved to help with that. I just am questioning the need for a Tahoe versus another all-wheel drive. Have you looked at the cost comparison?
It is a few $1,000s more, and we have looked at those. I believe the Tahoe is just the more space that's in, more equipment. We just did, you know, PPE for everyone that has to carry, that they have to carry in their car. In the wintertime, it gets to be very tight because they're also adding all of their winter gear that we purchase them in their car. So even the Ford utilities get tight sometimes. For example, I'm driving one right now, and the back end of my car is completely filled, and I don't have my winter gear in there, and I don't have my PPE in there. So it gets tight, yeah, in those cars for sure.
And I have one final follow-up. As someone who lives in the country and has had to call 911 for an emergency, our rural deputies are stretched thin in terms of miles, and it does affect response time if you have a deputy in the far southwest corner of the county that needs to go to Barnesville or up to Ulen to support it. So if this is approved, I would really hope that we add some extra mileage time into these rural deputies to make sure that we're not spreading them so thin, and we can help with the response time and the coverage, because I think that's the utmost importance to make sure that we owe it to our citizens to make sure there's a quick response time in emergencies, so, thank you.
And we have, you know, in 2021 here, this is to maintain our current staffing level. In 22, it would be to increase our staffing level to be able to help with just that.
I know in the past, Sheriff, there was always this idea that we would have a deputy in 4 quadrants of the county. Is that still kind of?
Yep.
Maybe you can.
Yep, it's still like that. Whenever we have 4 deputies working, it seems like right now that gets to be kind of rare sometimes, but whenever we have 4 deputies working, our zones are broke up into 4 different quadrants. Everything east of Highway 9 is considered Zone 2. Everything west is considered Zone 1. Everything north of Highway 10 is Zone A, and everything south of Highway 10 is B. So if we can, we usually have a 1A, 1B, 2A, and 2B car.
Good.
Just to expand on what you've said, Sheriff, and Commissioner Mojo. In my prior life, I had a lot of experience working with the Sheriff's Department, and I can tell you the response that isn't optional, it's necessary from the Sheriff's Department within the city of Moorhead is critical. A lot of those officers with Moorhead PD would be going without backup, or calls would be getting held an unacceptable amount of time if it weren't for the assistance from the Sheriff's Department. I realize this extra position is, in 22, is still on the table, but I also want to validate what the sheriff has said, and Commissioner Mojo has said. The demand on all our law enforcement in this community right now, on this side of the river, has not kept up with the growth of calls in any way, shape, or form. So all that is to say I'm supportive of this, and I think it's justified.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it gets to be tough sometimes, especially in our rural area where our backup for deputies is a long way away. If we got a deputy that's a 2A car, he's by himself, so you get a call up in the Ulen-Hitterdal area, and his closest backup could be coming from Craigness or Georgetown or Sabin or who knows where they're coming from. So it does get to be a little difficult on deputies sometimes. They get they have the gift of gab, so to speak, because they have to do that to be able to stay safe.
Commissioner Gross?
Okay, I guess the question here is the purchase of a vehicle, not the hiring of an employee. I mean, that's already been done with the budget and stuff like that, so this is the purchase of a vehicle.
No, it hasn't been done, but
Well, it's gonna be done, I mean, according to the budget, I mean, so I'll make a motion to approve the vehicle.
yeah, we have a motion.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Ebinger. Further discussion. I want to ask a question, and maybe Steve too. I know that your auction proceeds help go back into fund new purchases. Yes. How did were you able to hold the last scheduled auction, or was there, and was it all virtual, or did that hurt?
No, actually, it's been maintaining when we do those.
You have your mic on, by the way?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Was on, he's got.
Okay,
We've been maintaining a good budget with that auction.
right,
It hasn't gone down from like when we've had a live auction.
okay,
It's been maintaining pretty steady.
good.
Well, last fall, we made $55,000 out of our old vehicles. If you recall, we used 45,000 of that for the body cameras. So we do have 10,000 remaining as well.
Yeah, well, I going back to the motion, I certainly support it too. I just, and I know that we have to replace the person that's going to be going into active duty. It just becomes something that we have to be aware of come July when we start the 2022 budget, how we're going to, and hopefully you'll come back to us then with, because at some point he's coming back and he or she, I don't know who it might be, but that person will be coming back, and now you'll have another new person, and we just need to know how we intend to fund that in 2022. So,
Correct. Yep.
very good.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Steve. Yep. Okay. Our next item is the final review of our commissioner appointments, and I will tell you that I did get a communication from Commissioner Ebinger and Commissioner Cayley just in regards to the Northwest Emergency Commission Board. And I think on there it was listed wrong, where Commissioner Ebinger, you should be the delegate to that group, and Commissioner Cayley will be the alternate on that one. And again, I have asked you to maybe check with them to see if there's an option of having a second alternate, because I know Commissioner Cayley, you said that can conflict with the Clay County Food Commission or something?
And also the Wild Rice Watershed. They're all at the same.
Okay, they're all at the same time, okay,
I'll check on that.
okay.
Well, I might speak on that. With the Wild Rice Watershed, we're the liaisons on that, and so typically in the past, Commissioner Gross has gone to those meetings, and then the reason we're on that is for the One Watershed, One Plan, and then when they have special meetings. So it is a juggle. I understand that, so I just wanted to highlight that.
Very good. So did anybody else have anything that came up on the committees?
Did we discuss, was that the business subsidy? Because they're both, is there an alternate on business subsidy? I see Dave and you are both on it. Is one an alternate, or are you both?
No, we're both actually
Okay.
members, yeah.
What was the other conflict in time? Got that.
Pardon me?
What was the other meeting conflict? There were 3 meetings at once, did you say?
Well, Commissioner Cayley said that the, that
The Northwest Emergency Board and the Food Partners.
We can certainly reshuffle that food partners if that's,
and Commissioner Cayley is the alternate to that as well as
That was alternate on both of them.
on both of those, so, and you serve as the chair of that. Yeah, so I'm not anticipating any conflicts there, but I just think it might be good to know if we can add a second alternate to that one. And then that just allows a little bit more flexibility. If you can't go and you can't go, that we could still have somebody there. All right.
I think it's important too, as the next couple months go on, it helps to figure out which ones might be difficult to make. Right now, it's easier because most of them are virtual, so you can sign into that, but feel free to bring this back up for discussion in the next couple months. If you see conflict, we can work it out.
My understanding on the Northwest Communications is that because it's usually in Thief River Falls, they set up distance meetings some time ago because the roads are so bad getting in there in the winter. And so that should expedite us even after the COVID restrictions are done, assist us in making sure that we get our attendance.
Okay, I would look for a motion to approve the 2021 Commissioner Committee assignments.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ebinger. And a second by Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion?
Yeah, who's gonna, do we individually notify our people like I'm on a committee that I'm on and I'm not on anymore? Do I notify that, or are we gonna do an, is Colleen sending something out, or, how are we gonna notify these committees? I'll take Historical Society as an example, do I go call them up and say, okay, I'm not on it, send the stuff to, I think Jenny, you're on that now, okay? I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, do we do it, or?
In the case of the committees, excuse me, Commissioner Campbell, that I have seen a change in, I did make sure and reach out to those committees to let them know of the change, and the commissioner that would be taking that committee's email and contact information. So I did do that just because when I received Commissioner Everett's committee assignments, it seemed to take a long time. So I wanted to make sure that they had that.
Steve, do you care to respond to?
I think that would be helpful from our perspective. I think we've reached out in both of these cases to some of our partners to try to get those information on when the next meetings are. But if you certainly have those contacts as commissioners, if you could do that, that would be great in those circumstances.
So you're saying we should be doing that, or?
Well, if you would in those cases, and ones that don't pertain, ones that work for Commissioner Whalen, Commissioner Haney, we're trying to coordinate with the commissioners here to get those dates. But if you would be willing on yours, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. The committees are adopted for 2021. We'll move into our next item, Highway Department items. Good morning, Dave. Justin, good morning.
Morning.
Okay, you have 3 different items here.
Yeah, our first item is approval of final contract for a mill and overlay project on County Road 10. This is from County Road 69, which is on the west side of I-94 and extends all the way into the city of Downer. Was completed in 2018, and when we get done with these projects, a lot of times we negotiate back and forth on final quantities, making sure that everything is the way both sides see it. It took a little longer than I thought on this one. Sometimes it happens. This is what contract specifically was with Central Specialties, and we did get everything all ironed out. And like I said, sometimes the paperwork on the final end takes a long time. This took an extremely long time. everything worked out really good. The project did turn out really well. There was local road improvement dollars that we got for this project. I think it was a tune of about $450,000, so, which we are gonna apply for again, on a project. We haven't quite picked our candidate project yet, but, this is project SAP 14610-33. Might have had a little typo there in the bottom on your guys' sheet there. You might see a 633, that's not correct, it's actually 610. The original contract was for $928,749.12, and the final contract is $928,036.65.
Need a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
So I didn't know my mic on. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried. All right, your next item, Dave.
Next item is we'd like to get approval to advertise for our urban street job in City of Holly. We've been working back and forth and trying to get the design completed and approved by MnDOT as quickly as we can. Things have been going quite well. It's going to be a really nice project. It's a really big project. The city has quite a bit of infrastructure outside of the county's right-of-way that we're going to kind of tie together. They've got aging water and sewer to replace that's underneath our road in other areas of the city. So this is, I believe, what they kind of call Phase 3 for the city of Holly. And like I said, it's a really good cooperative project. A few weeks ago, we brought the MOU back to the board here for approval. Since then, we've been just tying up all the loose ends on the design. We did run it back and forth through MnDOT once. We've got MnDOT's comments back. They're in the process of making those changes. I know Justin and staff have been working on the proposal, putting that together. The exact letting date is looking like around the 18th, 19th of February, so it's going to be towards the end of the next month. But what I guess what I'd like to do is just get approval to advertise this thing, and then we'll set up a letting date with the city of Holly and with the state. There is also a Safe Routes project that's tied to this one. So the project that there's county dollars involved in is SAP 14633-18. And then the Safe Routes project for the city of Holly that we sponsored is SAP 14591-007. So I know Justin's been very involved, and as well as myself, we've met with the city and talked and had a lot of conversations with MnDOT. It's a little unique of a project that we've done. We've done similar ones with City of Glendon most recently, and then also City of Barnesville. This one is just, they've all got their own twists to them, so we're just kind of working out the fine details on cost splits and not participating items, non-participating items, who's going to track which items during construction, and who's going to pay the contractor and some of those things. So even just yesterday, we worked out some of the more details with Nathan Gannon from MnDOT on that, and things are going along quite well.
Well, we've been working on this project for almost 5 years already, so looking forward to getting it completed, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Kaylee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Your final item is the approval to advertise for bridge replacement on County Road 68.
Right, this was kind of nice to get a notice from MnDOT that the bridge bond dollars, so on county roads, about 90% of the project is actually funded through the bridge bond program. If this was on a state aid program, they only fund 50%, and the other 50% have to come from county state aid dollars. But on county roads like this one, they'll fund a larger portion of this one. So do you remember the exact number or close to the number, Justin, that we got for bridge bond dollars?
I don't remember.
Okay. I think it was the tune of about $450,000 or so. It was a nice chunk of money that we were able to get. I think when they come to the end of the bonding session, they kind of clean out their dollars, and they took a look at this project's been on the shelf for a while. Just been kind of waiting for the bridge bond dollars to come through, and I guess right now we're looking at advertising this project in a bid letting of February 9th. County Road 68 is kind of southeast of City of Sabin, so it's not too far away. It's within about maybe 15 miles or so. It's a little bit east of Sabin. It's just a rural gravel road, but there's a lot of farm to market traffic. There's residents that live down there, and The bridge itself is in need of replacement. The design was probably done 5 years ago or so. We're in the final stages of working with utilities. There's some power poles that need to get moved out there. And I believe the DNR has like a gauging station on the bridge itself, but all those details have been in the works, and it'll be another nice project. Most recently, our longtime bridge inspector has retired, so this will be the first bridge for our new staff to get working on. The retiree is continuing to work with us at a lesser level, but it'll be good to get an actual bridge underneath our current bridge inspector, so we're looking forward to it.
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Moses, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Anything else, Dave? Very good. Justin, thank you. Okay, we'll move into our committee reports. I'll start to my far left today. Commissioner Kaylee, do you have anything for us this morning?
Yeah, on Thursday, January 7th, the Joint Powers met and we discussed the upcoming intergovernmental retreat and set some agenda items for the next few months and talked about National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, where we asked people to wear blue on the 9th in support of our law enforcement officers. Also that day, I had the Children's Mental Health meeting where we discussed their upcoming survey of parents and providers to get a sense of what's going on with children's mental health in our area. And they've been doing that survey for years, so it'll be interesting to look at where our results are after this year.
Is there gonna be any discussion or consideration giving to what's happened with this whole pandemic? You know, it's kind of a different year when it comes to a lot of mental health issues that have been going on as a result of this. So I'm wondering if they're gonna be researching that aspect of it.
Yeah, a lot of the questions will give parents and providers space to address that. And so having years of the same questions and the same data to look back on will really let us see what has changed in the last couple of years. And I do think that effect we will see for more years down the road. That's not just a one-year thing. These will show up later.
I don't think I can point to anybody who hasn't had some different level of stress as a result of this, so. Mr. Mojo, would you agree with that? Okay.
One more then, on the 11th, the Law Library Committee met and we discussed the legal kiosk that's going to be put in, and we'll have to talk about that some more in the future once the Law Library does open up to the public again, how we want to
Okay,
go forward with that.
does that conclude your report?
That concludes my
Okay, Commissioner Ebinger.
Haven't had anything come up yet. My calendar's filling up in the future, so I will be able to contribute.
Well, having no meetings is not a bad thing.
I'm ready to hit the ground.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Before I dive into my committee assignments, I had a note in my agenda to ask a question. On the consent agenda, there were a handful of rehires and a new hire. On the request, it says, would also appreciate entertaining of backfill. And I don't know if is that approved when we approve the consent? Did we approve the backfill as well? And if not, I think this board should entertain that and discuss it and make notice for the minutes.
I think historically, this year at least, you guys have said that backfill comes with the approvals, but we would need clarification discussion, that would be great.
Well, and maybe that was okay for 2020, maybe it's appropriate in 2021 that we,
I certainly think that any requests coming forward in 2021 for a replacement should include the option of backfill within, That's far different than a new position. I don't know that we necessarily have a hiring freeze going on right now. But all new hires certainly have to come before this board. But it's a good,
I just want to be clear for these departments what that means. So,
Okay.
so today going forward, did the motion include backfill?
I assume that it did, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo.
Those that made the motion and second. I'm sorry to go back on this, but I want to make sure we're clear. I'm fine with that if that's the intent.
so that,
Just one question. With the backfill, it would always be at a lower rate or a similar rate to it wouldn't cause an increase in the cost of the position or whatever.
That's correct, Commissioner Eberger. Any adjustment that would be higher than the initial entry level would have to come before this board to have initial discussion.
Thank you for the clarification. I'm sorry. In my committee assignments, last week on Tuesday, we had a meeting with the representatives from the county as well as partners within our cities and discussed for the business relief dialogue. That meeting was well attended. It was also a vibrant conversation in structuring the program to make sure we reach those that really are in vital need of those grants. Our staff got to work really quickly to make sure that we had the online application process ready. Thursday, we had a CARES Act committee meeting to go over that and make sure that it was ready to go for the discussion that we had this morning. Thursday morning, I had a special meeting for the Diversion Authority in which we talked about recommendations for land acquisitions from the Cass County Joint Water Resource Board. I think that meeting was important because it showed some flexibility in policy to working with adjacent landowners. I did vote against both of those applications because I was concerned with the amount of lead time for the special meeting, but I will say that I, as a matter of principle, think that it's important that the Diversion Authority is showing flexibility in working with those landowners going forward. So I think my concerns were noted. I've since then had a meeting with email correspondence with Joel Paulson from the Diversion Authority as well as Arlette Preston from the City of Fargo. Yesterday, I attended the Law Library meeting just as a final recap. As Commissioner Cayley will now be taking that over. Good discussion with the kiosk that will be going in the library. I think I did note that they were wanting some more privacy for those discussions that they have with the self-help clinic, and had said that we had recently acquired some extra kiosk or dividers with the RDO building, so they will be in contact with Joe to make sure that they can make that work however sees fit. Also, as our county moves forward in opening the courthouse, make sure we are including the law library board, Cecilia from our attorney's office as part of that, in what that looks like so they can go forward with opening the law library. I will say that while that committee has had a cushion in terms of dollars in their accounts from court fines and fees that has gone into paying for that, because court cases have been really on hold, a lot of that on hold during COVID, that account has really seen a large dip. So the law library is being cautious and putting a hold on spending until they see a little bit of a change there. Last night, I attended the Buffalo Red Watershed District meeting. It was their annual board meeting. Before that, they entertained a resolution to request an attorney general opinion from MAUD, was the Minnesota Association of Watershed Districts, was petitioning Buffalo Red to take action to seek a attorney general opinion against this board in acts that we took to remove a watershed district manager earlier in the year. There was a vibrant discussion on that. That did fail with a motion of 2-5. I think it's important that this board continues to foster the relationship of all the watersheds in Clay County. They do good work for us It's a collaboration. We work on a lot of different projects together, so we'll continue to work on that relationship going forward. They had a discussion of Corps of Engineers wanted to purchase some wetland credits that will continue at a committee level going forward. They appointed an alternate for the policy committee of the One Watershed, One Plan, and added themselves as the fiscal agent and administrative agent role for the planning team request. So that goes with what we've heard in the past. They had election of officers. The officers for 2021 will stay the same. They appointed their lobbyist contract with Joel Carlson. That will continue to be the same, and talked about their 2021 financial designation. Their next meeting will be on the 25th of January at 5:30. They will have a human resources committee discussion in regards to their Houston contract for administration or having that in-house, and then their meeting will follow that. I believe that concludes my reports, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gross.
I had the one meeting with the Community Health Board, or Partnership for Health, whatever you want to call it. We've already discussed some of that, but the thing that came up was pretty much that each county is going to do their own thing as far as fees. And it's just an understanding that the fees, if it is a fee refund, rather really a fee refund, that it's not going to go against the CHB budget. You know, that'll, it's just looking at what fees were taken to be able to determine what to refund, and nothing will come out of the CHB budget. That's correct. So, and pretty much we had at that meeting. That was, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I had, on the Tuesday the 5th, I had the business relief meeting as well, and most of that was in regards to what we took action on today and preparing the application process for our businesses. On Thursday morning, I also attended the Clay County Joint Powers Board, and, you know, we did talk a little bit about the retreat coming up, and we did talk about future agenda items. I did request that, that we have a 5 to 10 minute segment from February all the way through May, that either Kathy McKay or somebody from Public Health will give those entities an opportunity to learn where we are in the vaccine distribution process. I think it's important for the school districts to know what's going on and when we're getting to those next levels. So that will be a standing item probably through May anyway. Then I did also attend the special meeting of the Diversion Land Management that morning. And Commissioner Mojo did talk about that. And then right after that one, I had the business relief meeting. And again, it was, both those meetings that week were in preparation and planning for the application process. Moving forward now, we will be changing that to determine how we're going to rank all these applications for the appropriate level of funding based on need. Then yesterday morning, I did have a Diversion Authority executive meeting, and there's a couple of highlights that I would like to bring out for people who might have interest in that. Right now, the North Dakota legislature is in session, and the current ask for that biennium is $89 million, and that's part of the 870 that the state has committed to, but it's the portion that they're anticipating needing. Commissioner Abbey, you might want to know this, you'll be on the Diversion Authority Board, but that's the amount that they're anticipating needing in this next 2-year period of the, so some really big news is right now the plan is for the Diversion Authority to award the P3 contract in April, so that's coming up quite quickly. And with that being done, we will have a pretty precise knowledge of what the cost of the big dig will be. I guess that refers to the actual channel itself and the bridges that go along with that. And you know, for those of you new to the board too, that contract will also include 30-year maintenance on the channel. So if you get questions about, well, how much are we gonna be paying for maintenance on the channel from whether you're City of Moorhead or, you know, anybody who is in the benefited area, there will be no charge for that. There will be potential maintenance that will be responsible for the tieback levies and the control structures that are separate from the P3 contract. So, and that likely won't happen until at least 2024. Yes, that's the Army Corps, yeah, that's the Army Corps' contracts, yep. The DNR, the lawsuit, the contested case was dismissed with the idea in mind that that the DNR will make some changes to condition 22. And condition 22 has to do with how land mitigations might be occurring. I think there was some, we actually agreed with Wilken and Richland County that there should have been some ways that those conditions could be modified to maybe help landowners a little bit better. So that's being worked on. The final permit is expected to be issued by the DNR between now and April 1st. Once the final permit is issued, then we will go back to the federal government and ask that the federal lawsuit be dismissed. And obviously that's something that's also part of the negotiated settlement, was that everybody would agree to dismiss the federal lawsuit once the permit is issued. And that, I guess that is it on that one. And that concludes my report. So, Mr. Larson, Steve, if you want to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I attended the Coronavirus Relief Committee that's been addressed by both Commissioner Campbell and Mojo. Later that day, we worked with Clean on the intergovernmental retreat pamphlet for everyone that would have gone out yesterday, I believe. And again, we're holding that virtually this year. We'll have 3 speakers. Kathy McKay will be talking about the pandemic. We'll have a diversion update from Executive Director Paulson, and we'll also have a legislative session with our legislators to close out that conference. On the 6th, I met with Derek LaPointe from Downtown Moorhead Inc., discussing our business relief package. Talked on that afternoon, had multiple meetings with Joe this past week to discuss government center project transitioning, signage, and capital planning. We met with court personnel that afternoon to talk about their courtroom and their space needs. Touched on I met with the Community Health Board that Commissioner Gross has talked about and we've talked about here as a board. The Joint Powers meeting I attended on the 7th, which has been addressed by Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Cayley. We had county management that morning where we had an update from Kathy. We reviewed our department goals. We talked about our government center, intergovernmental retreat, and you know, I think I shared at the end of last year we met 33 times as a management group. We historically meet once a month, and we've reviewed that process throughout the last year. And our group has kind of agreed that they appreciate the transparency and the information that they get on a weekly basis. And so for the foreseeable future, we're going to continue to meet weekly, Wednesdays. That afternoon, we had again another coronavirus relief fund committee meeting. I met with Sheriff Empting that afternoon. On the 8th, I met with Darren and HR on a series of issues, and also Brian Milton on a series of issues. And yesterday, we met with Kirk Rosenberger, Matt Evans, and in conjunction with their different projects that they have going on at the landfill and the resource recovery. Did want to just provide, everybody should have an update on their desk to sales tax figures. I know that we've had a number of conversations about that through the budgeting process. This board has asked that once we receive our final payment for each year, that we provide an update. And so we had projected that we were going to be just under $3.5 million. If you take a look at the highlighted yellow area, we actually came in a little bit higher than that at $3,528,511.72. We've already actually received our first January payment, which is almost the equivalent to what we've seen the last 2 Januaries. And so we have one more payment that we will be receiving towards the end of January.
Steve, I really like this report, but I would like to, have us put something on the, it'd be the April, May, June line item, that 561,000 that's there.
Okay.
I really think we should have a footnote on there that talks that was based on additional funds from auditing that had been done by the state level. So that may have dealt with several months prior, but I just think we should footnote that, not anticipating a big number like that in that same time period in future years. So, you know, in all likelihood, our number would be more like 3.2, you know, on a normal situation. So, which is still, by the way, for our new commissioners, I think when we planned for our budgeting for this, we anticipated 2 million or 1.8 to $2 million. So we're well ahead of where we had thought we would be, so. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, just one last thing of note. We have a retirement this week of an employee who's been here for a long time, Georgia Beaudry, has worked for Clay County for over 36 years in various jobs, most recently as our building manager at the Family Service Center. She's been part of our leadership team for over a decade, and really our unofficial event coordinator for holiday parties and food events and things like that. Just really exemplifies kind of that customer service piece of what we're looking here at Clay County. And so we're excited for her. We're sad to lose her, but I just want to thank her for her dedicated service and wish her well. So
Excellent.
that concludes my report.
I want to piggyback off that. A big help to me when I first got on this board was Georgia. She really helped with me understand. There's so many contracts that come up in the Family Service Center for review at this board and space needs. And really, if I ever had a question, I went to Georgia and she was able to answer it. So I want Georgia to know that I appreciate her help for me, but also know that I was not the only person that she showed such grace to. So thank you for all that she's done, and I wish them the best in retirement. I would guess they'll find a beach somewhere to relax.
Well, yeah, that's, I echo those same, so both her and her husband, who also was in our highway department for many years, can now, they can both really, you know, do whatever they want to do and frustrate each other being around all the time. So. All right, Brian, do you have anything today? All right, Colleen, anything for us? All right. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.